Vanakkam. Good afternoon to you. Today we are going to discuss utilitarianism. This is the second lecture on essay writing. Let us look at this image for a minute. I have explained about this image in my first class, where Professor Michael Sandel have told what is the alternative. For example, you are going by a train engine and you have only two choices, either to kill 5 or go to the right and kill 1 person. Now most of us are likely to give an answer that the second alternative is the second alternative is only the possibility. That is, you kill 1 person in order to save 5 persons. Now let us imagine that there is a train coming and 5 people are working on the track, and you and another person are looking at them, but those 5 people do not know that the train is coming. But if you push the other man, who is a very stout and bulky person, he will fall on the track and he will be killed, so that you can save the 5 people. Now, if you give this as a question, as a thought experiment, many people will say, I will not push that man. But in the first case, it is the same. You are killing 1 person so that you can save 5 persons. But here, why people differ? People say, no, we can't do that. Now the next question is, instead of this person, there is a big gorilla, and it is standing and looking at the track. Will you push the gorilla? Many told yes. Do you think that gorillas have no right and only human beings have the right? What exactly is the right thing to do? Now, killing 1 person is utilitarianism. Therefore, maximum good to maximum people. Really, I want you to ponder on this particular idea for 60 seconds. Now, the person who has given this idea is none other than a philosopher, Jeremy Bentham. You may be wondering why we have to read Jeremy Bentham, especially on essays and especially on ethics. For your information, many of the legislations, in fact, many of the legislations in our country are obtained from the British legislations. For the Contract Act is a 100% British legislation. We have accepted it and we are still continuing with that without any amendments. Therefore, understanding the philosophy behind the laws is one of the very important things you should really know. For this, you should know who is this Jeremy Bentham and how he has impacted the law and other aspects of a British world and in turn legislation in our country. Jeremy Bentham was born in 1748 and lived up to 84 years. He is an English philosopher, jurist, social reformer, and founder of modern utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is not new. It was there from Greek mythology, Greek philosophy. But he gave the fundamental axiom that greatest happiness of the great number of people is the measure of right and wrong. Now, if I am doing some act, I have to do only one test. Is it bringing greatest happiness to the largest number of people? If it is bringing that, then go ahead and do that. He is the leading theorist in Anglo-American philosophy of law, and he is a politically radical who has developed ideas of welfarism. And he advocated individual and economic freedom, and probably he is the person who may be considered as the economic liberalism. And he has also told that church and state, for example, in British, the church used to influence many of the policies of the state. And he has also told freedom of expression, equal rights for women, right to divorce, and probably he has influenced other areas. And he was against slavery, capital punishment, and physical punishment, and animal rights. Therefore, he was too early to his time, but definitely he was advocating all these things, and he belonged to Tory, which is a conservation party. And he was educated by Tories. Probably you can definitely see Tories and what they exactly. Therefore, we can't call him as a radical revolutionary, somebody like Karl Marx or Lenin. But what he was advocating was within the capitalistic system. He was trying to push his reforms, not to destroy the capitalistic world. While Marx and Lenin clearly advocated annihilation of the class, Jeremy Bentham probably is both a class friend, he himself a very rich man, but at the same time he was against natural law and natural rights, the natural laws and natural rights means God-given laws. And he was also sharp critic of legal fictions. Anyhow, I want you to go through the Wikivand, what has been given about Jeremy Bentham. Now, let us understand how to define utilitarianism. He has written a book, Moral and Legislations. I think I missed. Yes, Jeremy Bentham has written in 1789. Let me give you a brief about it. See, when you every day take decisions, which we have discussed in the yesterday's class, and which actions are morally permissible. For example, in the morning I try to buy a book, The Brief History of Mankind. But when I was buying that book, I was thinking that I am going to create, it is made up of wood pulp, therefore definitely it is going to have an impact on the environment. But when I buy that book and read it for my students and try to explain to my students the philosophy, then what happens is, it produces a net happiness to large number of people. Therefore, even if I buy the book, which has been printed on the pulp, still it is permissible because it produces net happiness. The word net happiness is very important. There is a happiness and unhappiness, and both combined together, you should have more happiness. The happiness is also having hedonistic inclination. Let me go to hedonism next. But keep in mind that the happiness maximization is very important. Now here is an Italian legal expert who told maximum happiness to maximum people as a legal principle. And this has been adopted by Jeremy Bentham, and he was a politician. And he was able to influence. He was not just a philosopher. He's a politician, and he has used it to influence many of the legislations. Let me break this into a mathematical equation. That is, one thing is theory of value is equal to theory of right action. Now, theory of value means happiness. What is happiness? Absence of suffering. For definition of happiness is absence of suffering. Therefore, if it creates a lot of value for the people, and you choose various alternatives, for example, I want to buy a book. And when I want to buy a book, when I'm buying a book, I may buy a hard copy. If I buy a hard copy, the carbon footprint is high. On the other hand, if I buy an electronic copy, the carbon footprint is very less. Therefore, it produces more value because I am going to teach the same thing. The only thing is, I am going to read it and teach. And if I use the electronic copy, the carbon footprint is less. Therefore, the right action is what produces most value. If I buy an electronic copy, the carbon footprint is almost minimal, near to zero. For this is what you mean by our utilitarianism. Actions are morally permissible if and only if they produce net happiness than any other action. That is the reason why when you want to have 5 people and 1 person, you kill 1 person so that you can save 5 people. Something very interesting. But this particular kind of a thinking permeated almost all the laws, legislation, everything. But there are enough number of critics, like Immanuel Kant, who is a philosopher, and he gave out his theory of categorologists, rather, about whom we will discuss in the next class. But here, this class, we will discuss about utilitarianism. Now, while talking about happiness, we also use the word, is it hedonistic? I have taken the definition as it is. Devote the pursuit of pleasure. For everybody should be happy and don't get unnecessarily bothered about, there are some poor people living. No. Just be happy and hedonistic. In fact, one of the major reasons for Roman Empire for decadence is the hedonistic pleasure. They were just enjoying themselves, forgetting what they are supposed to do in order to have a sustainable living for everyone. Now, utilitarianism. I have taken it from Stanford Encyclopedia. Utilitarianism is one of the most powerful and persuasive approaches to normative ethics in the history of philosophy. It was not fully articulated until 19th century, until Jeremy Bentham has given a shape and structure and designed it so that it is coming into the implementable form. There are many varieties of views discussed. Utilitarianism is generally held to be view that morally right action is the action that produces the most good. Fourth, you have to understand, most good, that does not mean that there is no bad thing in that. From the good thing, you minus the bad thing, still there should be a good thing for everyone. Everyone, that is very important. There are many ways to spell out this general claim. One thing to note that it is the theory is a form of consequentialism. Don't bother about how you achieved it. 10 rupees I buy a biscuit packet, and I may be thinking that I am not, but the plastic wrapper I contain for the biscuit is likely to remain in the world 300 years. Even my hunger has been over within 3.5 minutes. Therefore, it is not consequences, it is the way in which you satisfy your needs also is important, because it is likely to impact the world. Therefore, the classical utilitarians, Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill, always identified good with pleasure, like Epicurus was hedonist about value. We ought to maximize the good, that is, bring out the greatest amount of good for all the greatest numbers. Probably if you happen to study in business schools or in any one of the IIMs, and most of the IIMs start with by telling that our objective is to value maximization. Whether it is profit maximization or top line maximization, or even you get your capital from the people and then burn your money like most of the unicorns do, they say that it is maximizing of good. There are a lot of ways in which you can debate. Is this utilitarian principles we are still following across the world is good for a great number of people? Sorry, I think I have gone a little fast. Therefore, I want you to read the Plato Stanford EDU. You will get a complete idea about utilitarianism. Now, in the past class, I have talked about motives. Motives is what makes a person to act in a way or not to act in a way. Therefore, we have affiliate motive, disgust, comfort motive, hunger motive. For example, if you are asking me to stay here for a longer period, I may get hunger. Nurture motive. Like I try to correct you because I am a parent. I would like to correct you. You have a curiosity to read. You have a fear. Lust, love, justice, status, attract, hold, and play. And these are all the types of motives that influence us in order to perform certain tasks. Now let us come back to our old friend ethics. Ethics have 4 subdivisions. Metaethics. In metaethics, we try to study the scope of moral values. Descriptive ethics, we describe ethics in psychology, sociology, and anthropology. And normative ethics, moral course of action through practical means. We started using the word moral. The next one is applied ethics. This branch tells us how we can achieve moral outcomes in particular circumstances. We will definitely be reading this exhaustively in ethics paper, but here let us have a basic idea about what subdivisions of subtopics of ethics. So what is the problem with many of the case studies that you deal is not with good versus bad. If it is good versus bad, you will always go for good. Therefore, you are happy. But unfortunately, it is good versus good. Which good you have to choose? Should I choose a printed book or an e-book? It is good versus good. Good versus the best. Therefore, what happened is, let us take examples of values conflict. Soumya, Rama and Raja are friends. And Raja tells Soumya that he is suffering with severe depression and mood swings, and says, and tells Soumya, I'm just like this. Soumya, being a friend to Raja, she has just told, okay, try to get some medical help. Now, after 2 days, Rama comes to Soumya and complains bitterly about Raja's behavior. He says that Raja is behaving very oddly and he has mood swings. Certain times he comes and talks to me very well, but certain times he is very unhappy with me. He says, Soumya, what is wrong with our friend Raja? He misunderstood Raja thoroughly. Now, Soumya, should she tell Rama that Raja is having depression? But if you say Raja is having depression to Rama, then Raja is having a trust in Soumya that she will not tell anyone. Therefore, she is violating the value of trust. On the other hand, if she does not tell Rama, who also happens to be her friend, the truth, then again she is having a conflict of value. Because Rama believed that Soumya will solve the problem and told about Raja's issue. Now you can see the conflicting behavior, conflict that is happening in Soumya. Therefore, it is at the level of values, therefore the ethics, at the level of values we have a conflict. It may happen at the level of activity, actions and outcome. I am hungry. I make food and eat. On the other hand, I may go to a junk food place and eat food. Now I am again violating by my activity, eating junk food. You can see here varied amounts of conflicts in our everyday decision making, and we constantly solve these things. The most of the case studies that you are going to read in values are only this solving of dilemmas. Now there is a word that we use very frequently, virtue. Virtue is a moral excellence. It is morally good and valued as a foundation of principle good of moral being. As a human being, you are supposed to be moral. That's what distinguishes you from animals. It is the behavior that shows high moral standards. Doing what is right and avoiding what is wrong. The opposite of virtue is vice. Vice means doing wrong things. It is in Chinese, in Buddhism, 4 Brahma Viharas, it is known as divine states. Divine states that is regarded in the European sense. Therefore, virtue, virtuous is the Latin word from which it has been derived. It is moral excellence. Therefore, at the personal level, the morals are very important, and you uphold the morals. And for example, Gandhiji's Satyanveshana is a journey towards virtue. We will read about it more when we are actually studying that. In Egypt, virtue is known as Mat. It was an ancient Egyptian god of truth, balance, order, law, morality and justice. It is also a word used to refer to all these concepts. Mart was also portrayed as a regulator of stars, seasons, and actions. So what happens is, if you don't please her, probably she may be angry and she may create storms and other things. For opposite of Mart is Isfet. It symbolizes chaos, lies, and injustice. Now, for every word, I am also discussing the exact counterpart. In order to understand the limitation of the word or the contours of the word, for defining, you should know its opposite also. Therefore, Mart opposite is Esfet. Therefore, you can clearly distinguish between truth, balance, order, law, morality, and justice. Opposite of is chaos, lies, and injustice. That is what is Egyptian world have. This is the Egyptian goddess. Now, ethics and values. Now, ethics refers to the guidelines to conduct. It is a guideline and addresses the questions about morality. Value as defined as the principles and ideals which keep them in making the judgment of what is more important. Therefore, ethics make values are expanding, while ethics give you a break. Beyond this point, you are not supposed to go. Therefore, ethics are consistent, whereas values differ from person to person. The ethical framework remains the same, but how do you adopt for yourself will be different. For a CEO, the value system will be different compared to the value system of workers. Therefore, ethics and values, you need to differentiate very clearly, and I have given from keydifferences.com, you can find out the different words that you come across. Unless you study the difference with others, you will not know the boundaries within which ethics will be there. Now, ethos is one word which we use very frequently, but in modern usage, it denotes the disposition, character of a person. What are all the ethos of Mahatma Gandhi? See, he believed very strongly in non-violence. After his salt satyagraha, where he violated the law and made salt, he suspended that in year 1933. And he told, I am suspending this independence movement because I want to see the Dalits, whom he called as Harijans very nicely. And he told, unless you break this entire thing, I'm not going to fight for independence. And he continued. And then he comes to the Quit India movement. Therefore, ethos is something dominant in public life. For example, Communist Party in Soviet Russia has a very strong ethos. And those ethos are something like minimalism. While religion has saints, Communist Party has heroes. Therefore, there is an antithesis, something like what is there in religion is reflected in a mirror form by way of heroes of people movement. Therefore, what happens is, during 1930s in Palestine, or even in India, at the time of independence, we had mostly an agrarian economy. Over a period of time, we changed from agrarian economy, we changed it to mechanical energy, and then to services, and now we are in the age of computers. Now let me give you some idea about human behavior. as a subset of human conduct. Yesterday, in the last class, we are talking about human conduct. See, there is a lot of difference between human behavior and human conduct. We have clearly distinguished what is a human conduct. It encompasses all the actions. It is starting from the human behavior, it ends with the output action. Therefore, human individuals or groups respond to internal and external stimuli throughout their life. Specific traits of one personality, temperament, and genetics may be more consistent than other behavior changes as one moves in life stages from birth to death. Now, what happens is, when you actually look at personality or the attitude, we will definitely define from Freud, and probably we will stop with Jung's Carl. You write it as Jung, but we say Jung, and we will deeply delve into personality in order to know about the intricacies of attitude and personality. Behavior. Behavior is also driven by thoughts and feelings, and it provides insight into our individual psyche. Therefore, it reveals our attitude and values. It is shaped by our psychological traits as well as some physical traits. Now, we use very frequently the word spectrum. Spectrum means it is a continuum. I've given small letter spectrum or continuum, because what happens is, human beings are not like mathematics, 1 and 2, discrete units. They are continuous. Therefore, everybody will be at one area, and slowly others. Therefore, the values range. Therefore, what happens is, behavior of humans falls upon a spectrum. You cannot put them into one single silo or something like a box and then say he's like this. For humans are regulated by social norms, social control, and by the time the child grows up, he or she becomes social conformist. Therefore, there is a conditional behavior. We will study more about the conditioning of behavior. And we all know about the famous experiments with the dog, where the dog, whenever there was a bell, it was given a food. And even if the food was not there, the dog was sad. There is a salivation from the dog's mouth. Human beings are also like that. We'll see more about it when we study Pavlov's theories. And human behavior is studied by social science, which includes psychology, sociology, economics, and anthropology. In sociology, it refers to basic human actions, and some of these actions may possess no meaning, and actions directed at no person. Social behavior is different from human behavior. Social behavior is a subset of human behavior that accounts for actions directed by others, is concerned with the considerable influence on social interaction, culture, as well as ethics, social environment, authority, persuasion, and coercion. Principles. Probably we will discuss in the next class the complete set of principles and laws, which we will see in the next class. I have posted various links here which you can definitely go through so that you will be able to understand the different words that are being used by us, their meaning, and how you have to really understand while writing your essays. Thank you very much. We will see in the next class. அம்மா எத்தனை பேர் பார்த்துருக்கேன்?